Also, I don't think anyone discussed business acquisition, so I don't need to discuss business acquisition with us. It wasn't covered, right? Then, then the next one is we'll also discuss number 4, which is introduction to small business and agri finance. Then I will discuss number 5 with us, financial analysis. I will also discuss number 6, credit institution and its environment. Then we will look at number 10 and number 11. So, which means that I have a plan of discussing number 1, 4, 5, 6, and 10, 11. 1, 4, 5, 6, 10, 11. That's those 6 topics. Risk management, well, we've discussed risk management under 815, but please watch out for it again next week. There are some past questions on risk management. We can always review it again. So today, let's start. Let's start without wasting further time on it. All right. The first thing is a small business. First, you need to understand what is referred to as small business, right? What is a small business? Let's start with that, first of all. What is a small business? So what defines a small business are its features. There is characteristics. There is characteristics or features. These are what define what a small business is, right? Its small business is defined by its features. So there are those business that require some little investment, little funding, and there are some basic features or characteristics that define what a small business is. So I have them. Yeah. So these are the factors that define what a small business is. Okay, just characteristics of small business. Yeah. So if you are to define what is a small business, just know all these characteristics or features or factors that define what a small business is. You are good. So what are those factors? They can ask us to list 10 factors that define what a small business is. Like the test characteristics of a small business. The first thing is that it requires a small amount of capital. Okay. Every small business does not require a large amount of capital. You need small money to start a small business. E.g., if you have 10,000 naira, you know there are some business you can start with 10,000 naira. Let me tell you one, just look for boys, buy pure water for them, let them be selling in the traffic gala. 10,000 naira is enough to start a business. That's a small business. Then small size of turnover, all right? For example, according to FIRS, if a company is doing 25 million and below, it is a small business, right? Meaning your turnover is very small. So small size of turnover also define what a small business is. Then small number of employee. I think it's between 2 to 50, right? If you have this amount of employee, small business to require small number of employee. Then high level of entrepreneurships. That's another characteristics of a small business. That's another features that define what a small business is. High level of entrepreneurship. E.g., the owner is always the one that is involved in everything about small business. The owner is always the one involved. So it's always like a one-man show. That means the owner is involved in almost every activities. So that's another features of a small business. It is the same person that will generate idea, the same person that will run the business, the same person that will do everything. So that is what defines a small business. Then another features of a small business is if the owner dies, the business may also die with it. That's it. If the owner of the business die, the business also die. That means there is no distinctions between the owner of the business and the business. Then there is limited access to funding. This is another characteristic of a small business. They don't have a lot of way of funding it. They have very limited access to funding. Okay. Then we have high level of informalities. Yeah. E.g., Madam and his husband can be running the business today. Madam will just come, hey, accountant, withdraw money for me. You don't have to say no to that, otherwise you lose your job. So there are so many informalities involved. One day they can just ask you where the oxygen generator, they will take it home because they don't have gen at home or the generator they have at home is not working. So you will see a couple of lot of informalities in the way the business is run. That's another features of a small business. Then there is always a combined ownership and management structure. So it's the same. It is the same owner that will be the one that will be running the business. The same MD is the owner, is the one that is also managing the business. The lack of good corporate governance is the same thing too. Okay, it's the same thing too. Sometimes, madam, the owner of the business, if it's a woman, can even request some of the female staff to come to our house to cook. you can see a lot of lack of corporate governance and limited access to skilled labor, definitely because they will not be able to pay. So there is always limited access to skilled labor. So if you know all these 10 factors, these are what define what a small business is. So please, let's try and note them. And there might be more that I've not mentioned, but these are what define what a small business is. Now, the next thing we want to discuss is, then how does this small business, how do they source for finance? How does a small business source for finance? So there are basically three ways they can source for finance. Is either through a short-term means, medium-term, or long-term means. So when we say short-term source of finance, this short-term source of finance is between 0 and 12 months. Any short-term sources of finance is between 0 and 12 months. That means they will be able to raise the money and pay back within 0 and 12 months. That is a short time. So what are the examples of short-term sources of finance? The first one is the borrowings. So they borrow money from families and friends. That's the first one. They can borrow from family and friends. In fact, that is the most popular ways of sourcing for money for small business. They borrow money from family and friends. Then they can also borrow from cooperative, thrift, and all these credit society. In fact, many small businesses, if you go to all these markets, they have their own cooperative society. Maybe every day they drop 500 naira every day, and don't be surprised. That 500 are dropping every day. By the time they will collect their money by the end of the year, it might run into a million. So that is how it works, because they will pull money from many of them running the business. Every day they pay 500 naira. By the time they are collecting the money, you will not be surprised how much they will make. So they have that. Then the bank also offer them short-term facilities like all these. In fact, microfinance bank, they are specifically set up for these small businesses. All microfinance banks, they are supposed to cater for small business, right? Not big company. Because microfinance bank is a bank where you can access short-term finance and the funding are always not too much, right? That's microfinance. Then they also source for short-term through their personal savings, or they get credit from their vendors. Like, okay, supply me this, I'll pay you in 1 week time. So that's a finance. You are buying goods on credit from a vendor. Supply me, I pay you back in 1 week's time. That's another source. Then they use bank overdraft too. Bank overdraft is when banks allow you to draw above your balance, right? But there'll be a limit. Maybe you have a cap of 1 million. You can draw above your balance up to 1 million, but they will charge you interest. Then there is something called invoice discounting. Invoice discounting is when you sell to your customer and you credit days with your customer, let's say 90 days. Now the customer that give you the options that, okay, my banks can allow you to discount this invoice at a fee, which means that if you wait for 90 days, let's assume the sales made to the customer is 1 million. But if you wait for 90 days, you will collect that 1 million. But if you want to collect your money immediately, you don't want to wait for 90 days, you will still collect the money, but it will be less than 1 million. They will charge you what is known as invoice discounting fee, right? Then the last one is factoring. Factoring is when you outsource your debt to a third party. You sell your debt to a third party known as a factor. So those third party will buy over the debt from you at a fee. So they will be the one to go and collect the debt from your debtor, but they will pay you a fee for that. You will pay them a fee for that. That's factoring. So all these things that I've listed now, these are short-term sources of finance. So in case they ask us, kindly list the short-time sources of fund for a small business. Don't go and be writing bond. Don't go and be writing long term. So if they ask you to list short-time sources of finance for a small business, so these are what you are going to write. All these things I've listed now, they are the short-term sources of fund. Now, let's look at the medium time. Medium term are those funds that you can raise between 1 to 5 years, right? Any funding that you can get and repay within 1 to 5 years is known as the medium term. So examples of medium terms are debenture, which is between 1 to 5 years. Hire purchase, you can purchase your company vehicle or delivery van and pay back within 5 years, or you lease it too. So these are the examples of your medium term. So medium term are very few. In fact, for small business, most of their financing fall within this short time. So medium terms are always they are limited to this actually. Debenture, hire purchase, or leases. Then the last one is long-term sources of funds. So these long-terms, these are the funding that takes a while for you to pay back. Examples are your mortgage loan, ordinary shares, long-term bond exceeding 5 years. You know, you have bond that is within 5 years. You also have bond that exceeds 5 years. Preference shares, funding from venture capital or angel investor. You can also have funding from, let me write it, funding from angel investors. Then grants. Okay, these are the sources of what? Finance. So I've covered two things already now. I hope you are following me, please, everyone. We'll be able to cover the characteristics and the sources of finance. Are we together? Oh, I'm just on my own here.
Yes, we are
Yes, we're
together,
together.
sir.
Okay, awesome, awesome. I'm a little bit fast. I deliberately so I can cover as much,
I'm
but
together.
you can always go through the recorded versions to listen it, to listen to it again, right? So we have discussed two things already. The first thing we have discussed is the characteristics of a small business. Please let this thing think now. Please let it think. Then we've also discussed the sources of finance, both the short, medium, and long for small business. Let this one also think. Then the third one is, what are the factors that determine the sources of finance? What are the factors that determine whether you should go for short, medium, or long? So I have about 13 factors that I've listed, but I don't think they will ask us to list more than 10, if at all. So I will list out those factors now with explanations, right? I will list out the factors with explanation. The first one is the cost of capital. What is the borrowing cost? What is the borrowing rate? So this is one of the factors that determine the type of finance that you should go for as a small business, whether you should go for small, medium, or long. It is the first cost of capital. Then, what is the purpose of the funding? What did you want to fund? Do you want to fund your working capital? You know, if you want to fund your working capital, then you need a short-term funding. You don't need a long-term funding for working capital. The next one is the tax considerations, right? If you want the tax consideration, it's much better to go for bond because you get your interest, right? So your interest is tax deductible, correct? Because bond will gives you a tax benefit of interest. Then what is the repayment? What is the repayment terms? So repayment terms too is another factor that you need to consider too when determining cost of bonding. Risk tolerance too is how tolerant are you to risk? If you know your risk appetite is low, then don't go and borrow money, because if you borrow money, the moment you borrow money, it might increase your BP, because you start thinking, more especially if the business is not doing well and you have so much debt, your BP might go up, because you start thinking of how do you pay back your debt? How do you pay back? But if you know your risk tolerance is very high, just go and be looking for family that will borrow you money so that they will not disturb you much. Or you look for government grants or whatever. That is depending on your risk tolerance. Then what is the size of the business or turnover? E.g., a company making 2 million every year cannot go and approach bank and request for 100 million. If I want to advise us, there is a program, this Lion Den. I want to encourage us to always watch that program. It's on YouTube, right? You will learn about all this small business, and some people in their life, what they have ever made as turnover is 2 million, 3 million. They will now go to Lion Den and be asking for a valuation of 150 million. Sometimes you will laugh when you listen to some people's presentation at Lion Den. It's very good for everyone to listen to, watch it on YouTube. So the size of the business or turnover to decide on your sources of finance. Then availability and accessibility of fund. You know, there are some funds that you can get that you may not be able to access for it easily. E.g., we have some CBN's loan or DCSR or the CBN loan. When CBN approve the such loan for you, they will tie the loan to a particular project, right? Meaning you cannot draw the loan down for anything. Well, before you draw down, you must show them the pro forma invoice or whatever. Then the money will now be transferred directly to your vendor, not to you. So you consider, will I be able to access this money when I need it? That's a factor. Then what is your current cash flow? Can you repay back the loan? Can you repay back the interest? What is the current capital structure? What is the regulatory and legal requirements in the industry? Then which type of securities are you willing to give as collateral? Then what control autonomy consideration? Is it that when they borrow you the loan, they will be after your business? Will you still have control after borrowing? If you know you are fighting for control, then you don't need to use your shares. Go for loan. Because the moment you use your shares, capital, your control will be diluted because the new shareholders will be part of the owner of the business. So if you know you don't want people to touch your shares, then you don't go for shares. So those are the considerations. Then what is your current leverage or gearing ratio? Gearing ratio is the proportion of debt that you have in your capital structure. So what is it looking at? So all these things I've listed now, these are the factors that determine the type of sources of finance that you should go for. So when you see this in the exam, just say thumb up to me, right? So this is also one very key questions that you should not overlook. So let's move on. We've covered. Now, the next one we are discussing is, so I'm leaving small business for now. I will still come back to it later. So, but let's move on to financial analysis. This is Dr. Ajayi's part, right? Dr. Ajayi. So for Dr. Ajayi, he's most interested about this. Look at this. Characteristics of small business is Dr. Ajayi. He taught us only two topics. The small business features, characteristics. Then he also taught us sources of finance. And he taught us three, sorry. The characteristics of small business, sources of finance, and financial analysis. So if you go through his book, you see exactly what I'm saying now, but if you have time for that, right? But I will share this material with us definitely when I'm done this evening. So let's discuss the financial analysis. What is a financial analysis? Is the process of identifying the strength and weakness of a company's financials through ratios. So we normally use ratios for financial analysis, right? We use ratio for financial analysis basically. Then when we say financial planning is a combination of your ratios and forecasts. That is, when you combine this analysis, financial analysis with your forecast, that is known as financial planning. So financial planning is basically the combination of your financial analysis and forecast. And you use these things for future decision making, right? You use your financial planning is basically a tool that you use for decision making, but it's combined your financial analysis skills and your financial forecast skill. So when we talk about financial analysis, that's your ratio. Your forecast is trying to predict based on the current trend, right? So that's for that. So financial planning is the combination of your analysis and forecasts. That's for decision making. That is what financial planning is all about. So accounting ratio is just when you are trying to express two figures together, okay? Mathematical expression of two accounting figures. That is what ratio is all about. So how do you now compare ratios? There are various ways of comparing ratio. Okay, the first one is trend analysis. This trend analysis is when you are comparing your current ratio with the past. That's trend analysis. What you have done now, you are comparing it with your past, e.g., 5 years financial summary, 10 years financial summary. That's your trend analysis. Then the next one is industrial ratio. Industrial average, sorry, industrial average. So under industrial average, you are comparing your own performance with what is applicable in the industry that you are operating. So is either you use trend or you use industrial, or you compute your current ratio and compare it with what you are forecasted for the future. This is very rare, right? Then compare the current ratio with selected company ratio. So the last two is very rare, but the most commonest one is either you use one or two. In fact, for a good financial planning, we make use of one and two. First, we do industrial average comparison. And second, we check what is applicable. What is our past result? How does our past result looks like? So those are the two things that we basically use under financial planning. All right. So let's now discuss the types of ratio. There are about 6 categories of ratio. I'm sure, not all of us are accountants here. This is finance program. It's not everyone that is an accountant. So there are basically 6 categories of ratio. Let me list out all the 6 for us, first of all, then I will explain them one by one. The first one is your short-term solvency ratio. This short-term solvency ratio is known as the liquidity or working capital ratio. The second one is the long-term solvency ratio. This long-term solvency ratio is known as gearing or stability ratio. The third one is your profitability ratio. The fourth one is your efficiency ratio. The fifth one is the coverage ratio. And the last one is your investors ratio. So those are the six categories of financial ratio. Let me list them out. Categories, because some will never listen to this recording again, but they will read this material of ratios. One, short-term solvency or liquidity ratio. Then number two is long-term solvency or stability or gearing or stability ratio, leave it like that. Then the third one is the profitability ratio. Fourth one is efficiency ratio. Fifth one is the coverage ratio. And the last one is the investor or shareholders ratio. So these are the six categories of ratios that we have. All right, let's take them one by one. Well, I will limit myself to what Dr. Ajayi taught us. I don't think he discussed these six. I will limit so that we don't do over syllabus, right? So when we say liquidity or working capital ratio, this ratio basically is used in assessing the strength of a company's, how a company is able to pay back its, how a company is able to pay back its short-term facility. Okay, how a company is able to pay back its short-term obligations. That's what liquidity is all about. So there are three ratios under liquidity. We have the current ratio. The current ratio is your current assets divided by current liability, and the recommended for this is 2 to 1. Then the second one is the acid test. Acid test is more in-depth than current ratio because acid test exclude your inventory from your ratio. So for acid test, we have current asset minus inventory, and the recommended for acid test is 1 to 1. The third one is the cash ratio. So let me skip that because Dr. Ajayi did not discuss that. Let's move on. Then number 2 is debt to gearing ratio. So this debt to gearing ratio tests the ability of a company to meet up with its long-term obligations, right? The ability of a company to meet up with its long-term obligation. So that's what a debt ratio is all about. So this debt ratio is your total debt over total assets. Just take your total debt over total assets. That's your debt to debt ratio. So the higher this ratio, the highly geared you are. So if this ratio is high, that shows that you are highly geared, right? So the next one is the debt to equity ratio. So this debt to equity ratio measures the proportion of a company's capital that is financed through debt. So the formula is your total debt over equity. So if this ratio is high, that shows that the company has more debt in its capital structure. Please note there is nothing wrong in a company having debt too. But the principle is that for you to have debt, you should be making profits, right? If a company is doing well making profits, then it is even better to finance its capital operation through debt. Then the next one is the coverage ratio. So this coverage ratio is known as the interest cover. It measures the number of times your current profit can pay back your interest, right? That's a coverage ratio. So just say your PBIT divided by interest charge. Then the next one is the profitability ratio. See, this ratio, they are far more than this though, but I'm limiting myself to what Dr. Ajayi mentioned in his book, which I believe that is what you ask. I don't want to give you too many things. I'm limiting myself to what he mentioned in his book. There I can list like 5 ratio each under each category. So I don't want to do over syllabus for us. So I'm limiting myself to what he mentioned in his book. So the next one is the profitability. In fact, he even said profitability or efficiency. They are not the same thing. They are two different things. But this is how he mentioned in his book. So let me leave it like this. Profitability is different from efficiency ratio. They are two different. I don't know. Should we correct it or we leave it like that? It is wrong. What do you think, guys? Should we correct this or we leave it? Profitability is different from efficiency. Hello?
Isn't it correct?
You said?
I think it's good we correct it.
It's better to correct.
We should correct, right? So profitability is a ratio on its own. Let me remove it. Efficiency. So under profitability, here you test your gross margin ratio. Your gross margin ratio is your gross profit on sales, net margins ratio, or OPEX ratio. So all these returns that you are saying, these returns are efficiency ratio. So all these returns ratios, they are efficiency, like return on assets, return on capital employed. Those ones are efficiency ratio. Another one is return on capital employed. Okay, so this return on capital employed, we have your profit divided by, let me say profit divided by capital employed times 100/1. So profit divided by capital employed times 100/1. So this is the return on capital employed. Then we have the asset activity or utilization ratio. That's stock turnover, debtors turnover. Just go through this, well listed here. So these are the 6 categories of ratios that we have, financial analysis. Now I'm moving on to another area now entirely, which is this agri credit guarantee schemes. So this is like is a government parastatal setup basically to assist the farmer. I don't think we were taught in class, right? But I've seen this thing in the past question. Okay, there's a message. Let me read the message. Teacher, please, is debt a blessing to an organization? Can you emphasize on debt? Thank you. Debt is good if you are making profit. So that is how I will say. If you are making profit and you are borrowing debt, it is good for you. So debt is actually good as long as you are making profit, as long as you have the profit to pay back. You know, the only thing you owe a debt holder is the interest and the capital repayment. That's the only thing you owe them. If I borrow money from you, the only thing I owe you is to pay back your money and with interest, right? Once I do that, go away. So debt is, but if you are not making profit and you are borrowing money, then it's like they are just digging someone's grave small. So debt is a blessing if you are making money. But if you are not making money, debt is not good. Okay, so that's what I will say about that. Now, the next one is agricultural credit guarantee scheme. So this agricultural credit guarantee scheme is a government parastatal that was set up basically. Objective of this thing, farmers, they operate on a small scales, right? It is very difficult for one farmer to approach Zenith Bank, and Zenith Bank will give money. No, lie. It is more difficult for his customer to approach Eco Bank or any of these banks. But these agencies now, what they do basically is that they encourage banks to provide facilities to guarantee to farmers. So it is this agency that will now serve as a guarantor. So they will guarantee so that banks will be able to lend the farmer, but they are the one that will act as a guarantor. That's why we call them agricultural credit guarantee scheme. So there is a program designed to provide financial support to farmers and agricultural enterprise. So it aims to encourage banks to lend to farmers. So they will serve as a guarantor so that banks will be able to lend money to farmers. But before you can, as a farmer, before you can access the money, I'm sure there are some terms and conditions that these bodies have set aside, which you have to meet up with. So you have to meet up with all those criteria before they can lend you the money. So that is what this ACGSF are all about. So they were established by Act of Decree in 1977, but they became operational in 1978. So what are their functions? I've listed the functions already. Number one is to provide guarantees for loan granted by lending banks. So, but the purpose of the loan must strictly be for agricultural purpose, right? But they will provide the guarantee for you so that banks will be able to lend you money. Then they also encourage banks to lend more to farmers. Okay. They also supporting agricultural production. So how do these accept? How do they get their own money from SUNA? So it is through CBNs, right? They realize 60% of their money from the federal government of Nigeria, TSA, and they get about 40% from CBN, and their total share capital as at the last time, well, is 50 billion. So that's the share capital. So what is the challenges of this body? What they also face challenges. Number one is the limited awareness. Even me, that I'm not a farmer, I don't know about this body until when we're writing this course in third semester. I don't even know who they are. I'm not sure if anybody even know them before now. So limited awareness, farmer don't know them, right? They don't know they exist. Then they also have their own bureaucracy, right? All those in the approval process. Before they also follow their own, is a government parastatal, so expect to have floor of high rate of what? Bureaucracy. Then infrastructure, inadequate infrastructure, high default rate. Definitely, some banks will collect money and run away. So the same thing that we used to have with anchor borrowers plan. You know, there is this anchor borrower program. I think Buhari and his family member, they use the anchor borrowers something to embezzle money. Buhari and Emefiele, they use the anchor borrowers plan to embezzle money. So they give out a lot of money to farmer. They call it anchor borrowers. But guess what? Many of the people that collected the money disappeared. To date, they are still chasing people that collected money under anchors borrowers. So I've been able to cover as many topics now, right? If you check, we've discussed so many things. So let me leave this material now. I want to move on to another materials, which is credit institutions. So if you check the course outline, I've talked about number one, right? I've talked about number four. I've talked about number five, right? We've discussed one, four, five. So let's discuss six. Let's discuss six. So number six, credit institution and their environment in Nigeria. So all these credit institutions, they operate within a certain form of regulations, right? The apex bodies that manage the credit institutions in Nigeria is the CBN, right? So this credit institution in Nigeria, they are grouped into the following. So if they ask us, what are the classification of credit institutions in Nigeria? I repeat, question number 2A. What are the question number 2A? I'm seeing vision now. 2A. What are the classification of credit institutions in Nigeria? Your answer, number one, DMBs, deposit money banks. So under the deposit money banks, we have the commercial banks. So these commercial banks, they are licensed by CBN. They offer both the personal and business loans, credit cards, overdraft facilities. What are their examples of commercial banks? First Bank, Mortgage Bank, Zenith Bank, First Bank, UBA, Palava. So that's examples of commercial banks. Then we also have microfinance banks. So these microfinance banks, they provide short-term facilities to farmers, right? Short-term facilities to farmers or small-scale business. Examples of microfinance bank, Lapo. This Lapo has full meaning. Can somebody tell me the full meaning? I used to see it on their signboard. Who knows the full meaning of Lapo? It has a full meaning. It's not just Lapo. Anyone that want to assist with the full meaning of Lapo? Something. I will Google it. Who want to help me? I want to know it now. Nobody. Okay. Let me type it here. Full meaning of Lapo. As you guys are behaving as if you have not approached Lapo before to borrow money. Of Lapo Microfinance Bank. Okay. They have a full meaning. So Lapo Microfinance Bank, lift above poverty organization. That's the full meaning of Lapo. If you don't know it, it is lift above poverty. So they want to lift you above poverty. That's the full meaning of Lapo. So if you don't know, Gary now, Lapo means lift above poverty organization. So that's the full meaning. Let's move on. So we have development finance institution. So for the development finance institution, these bodies provide a very long-term facilities, right? Examples are your Bank of Industry, BOI, we have Bank of Agriculture, Development Banks of Nigeria. Then we have mortgage banks. So these mortgage banks, basically, they provide facilities for housing. One of them is the FNB, and we have one of their big Oga, it's Ogana Father here. May he promote his FNB business more. Ogana Father, are you here, sir? He's one of the top Oga at FNB. So if FNB is owing you money, when next you see Nafada, kindly hold him very well. Grab his clothes. He's one of their big Oga at Federal Mortgage Bank. Then we have the fintech. So you can see the categories of, I'm listing the categories of credit institution in Nigeria. Number one is commercial banks. We've listed them. Number two is the microfinance banks. Number three is the development finance banks. Number four is the mortgage banks. Then number five is all these fintechs. In all these fintechs too, they are under the credit institutions, such as your Fair Money, Rare Money, and so on and so forth. They are under this what's it called, credit institution in Nigeria. Then we have corporate society. So I've listed about 6 for you. So should I ask you to list the credit institution in Nigeria with examples? Note that you are listing commercial banks, microfinance bank, development finance institution, mortgage banks, fintechs, cooperative, and so that's what you are listing, right? Then they also have their own environments too. So we have the macro environment and macro, which we discussed on, is it last week? No, this week now, Wednesday, yeah. We said that what was it called? I've forgotten. The micro are those ones that are small, internal, something that is within your control, and they are known as the variables, which you need to know. There are 6 variables, and their threats are 5 portals, 5 mode forces. So you need to know the threat. Then macro, those ones are wide, like it affects the entire country, not within the control of any companies. And also in managing macro, understand the variables, which is your PESTEL, PESTEL. We discussed this in details in the last time. So we also discussed the regulatory. So number one environment is the macro environment and macro environment. Then we also have the regulatory environment. So under the regulatory environment, there are a lot of government agencies. Number one is the CBN, is one of them, which regulates all of them. We have NDICs as well. We have the NSEC and Consumer Protection Agency. So we also have the economic environments, inflation and interest rate, exchange rate volatility, GDP growth. We have the technological environment. We have the social and business environment. So these are all the environment in case they want us to discuss the relevant environment of credit institution in Nigeria. First, you are defining what is an environment itself, which is macro and micro. Then you now list out those various environments. First one is the regulatory environment. Second one is the business economic environment. Third one is technological, social, and so let's look at the challenges in this facing this credit institution in Nigeria. This credit institution in Nigeria, they also face their own challenges. Number one is that there is high loan default rate. People don't pay back loan to them. That is why Lapo, Abiwu, they will keep posting people's pictures on Instagram every day. That this is a defaulter. Lack of credit infrastructure is also there too. They lack credit infrastructure and weak enforcement of loan recovery, cyber security risk. Okay, I hope none of you invested in CBEX on this call. It's CBEX carry, I think CBEX, they went to Ibadan to go and carry money, to go and discuss with, to go and, CBEX was small in Ibadan. Probably they believe that Ibadan people are not too educated more. So they went to Ibadan to promote CBEX and people really lost so much money, a lot in Ibadan. Teacher, please also touch on area of concentration for Dr. Oyewale and Dr. Abu's business plan. Yes, definitely. So in fact, this is what I'm discussing from Monday. On Monday, we are going to be very specific. Now, what we are discussing now is general knowledge of the entire stuff, right? But from Monday, we will be specific. We are attacking it. So we are taking AOC and past questions from Monday. Don't worry. I will try and summarize this business plan. That's question number 1 from Dr. Abu, business plan. Then Dr. Oyewale's too will try and summarize all the areas that they want us to summarize, please. Watch out for that next week. So all the AOC and the past questions, that's our focus for next week because we'll be more direct with the exam now. Okay, so that's well noted. Biodun, noted. So these are the challenges facing this credit institution in Nigeria. All right, let's move on. So we have covered number 6 also. I think I have just 1 or 2 more before I promise to spend 1 hour with you today. Then everyone can go. So we are done with this. The last area that I would like to discuss is farm management. Let me quickly do a general overview of farm management before we call it a day. Farm management. Okay, special credit goes to Perpetua, right? Perpetua, are you on this call? She is the one that put these materials together, credit goes to her. She summarized how many pages material said Dr. Abu gave us. She summarized everything she summarized everything to about 10 pages. I think it's about almost 40-page material. She summarized everything, which is quite it's a very big task. So kudos to you, Perpetua. I think she's not on this call. All right, so this is a material. So what I'm doing basically is to just do a summary of everything and explain. All right. So small business and agri finance. So here we are discussing about farm management itself. Farm management is the topic. In fact, this should come up, not the small business and agri finance. Farm management should come up. So we'll spend the remaining time, about 10 minutes on farm management, and we'll end the call. So what is a farm management? So just think about it that you are a farmer. So in managing your farm, it involves so many things: planning, organizing, directing, controlling. Just know the meaning of management. I think we have an acronym for management. Is it POS, CAI, or something? Or everything that involves in management, planning, organization, directing, all those things. That is objective. So you do all these things for one thing, for the purpose objective. Okay, let me go for that again. What is the objective of farm management? Why do you do all this planning, organizing, directing, everything? Why do you do? Number 1, maximize productivity. You do this to maximize productivity. Number 2, reduce farm wastages. Okay. Number 3, maximize profitability. Then another one is enhance sustainability. So these are the reason why you do all these things, right? If you're able to manage your farm very well, this will be your outcome. Your outcome will be all these 4. If you are able to manage your farm very well, then these 4 things will be your outcome. That is, if you manage it well, these 4 things that I've listed above is your outcome. Then, before I forget, Abiodun, I don't know, is Abiodun. I know Dr. Abu's business plan, but please, can you be kind enough to share Dr. Yewole AOC on the WhatsApp group, or you share it with me directly? I've not been consistent in class. In fact, I was not consistent at all throughout this semester. So please, I know Dr. Abu's own. I know his AOC. I was in the class when he gave us, but I don't know about Dr. Yewale's own. So please, kindly be kind enough to share them here. You can share them here, or you send them to the WhatsApp group or to me personally on WhatsApp. So either of the 3 means is okay. Dr. Yewale's AOC, please, so that I can include it in my plan for next week.
So, Dr.
All right.
Iwale, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, bro, I can hear you.
So, Dr. Iwale, basically, what he said is that we should go and study everything under planning.
Is it farm
That's
planning, Abi?
Yes, that's where he's going to bring out this question from. Everything
Did he
under
teach
planning.
us? Did he teach us planning in farm management?
No, that one is Abu.
Is Abu now?
Is Abu? So I'm missing
Yes,
them up
now.
there.
Oyewale didn't teach us farm planning now. He taught us only, what is it taught us? Oyewale, I forgot himself. He didn't teach us planning.
Oh,
Please,
thank
anyone
God
that
I said.
knows, you can send it to the WhatsApp group or you send them to me, please. Dr. Oyewale AOC. I know Abu on. We will treat Abu, but I don't know Oyewale on. Please. I beg, we beg. All right. So, objective of farm management. So I've said that if you plan your farm very well, these are the objectives. Then what are the components of farm management? So There are about 10 components of, so for you to manage your farm, first, these 10 things must be well put in place. The first one is resources. Resources, how you are able to manage your resources effectively. Planning, how you are able to manage your operations, financial management, production management, risk, marketing and sales, technology, labor, sustainability, and record keeping. So let's look at them one by one. So the first one is a resource management. So this involves how you are able to manage your resources very well. So objective of resource management is to minimize waste and maximize output. So if you are able to minimize waste and maximize your output, then you have successfully managed your resources very well. Your resources are your material, capital, labor, those are your resources. So outcome, if you're able to manage your resources, you will minimize waste and maximize output. So what are the type of resources? The first one is human resources. That is your staff. Make sure that there is no idle workforce. Everybody is given a task and they achieve their job. Don't let anybody be idle. If they're idle, that means you are not managing your human capital very well. Okay. Okay, Dr. Alabi, you can help me. Thank you, sir. Noted. So natural resources too. Are you able to manage? Okay, someone's hand is up. Coyote, go ahead, bro.
Okay, so I think I get it now. What is said is that was that the means of financing SME are Greek. That we are going to
So,
mention at least 7
how to
means of.
finance? We've discussed it already, Abi.
Then you now said specialized financing initiative. Then I think that day in the class we agreed
List, call it for me. Number one, he said what? Are you reading from your
means
book or from your head?
from my book where I
Oh
jot it
yeah,
down.
say
Say
it.
means of financing SME are Greek. At least we are going to
Okay.
mention at least 7.
We have discussed it this evening, Abi.
Yeah.
We have already
So
discussed those short, medium, and long. List 7 and explain. Next one, bro.
then specialized farming initiative. I mean financing initiative.
Okay.
Specialized
What does
farm
it?
financing initiative. So I think
What
that
does
day
it?
we agreed. He said he's going to give us about 12 or so. Then he's going to set question on 4 of
Said
them.
7. Oh, you said
And
7, not 12.
he gave us 12 in class. He gave us 12 in class. We now narrow it down to 7. Then out of that 7, we are going to do 4.
Okay,
Class.
there he gave us notes for this in class, Abi. I don't even know what.
So,
Okay.
so what we now agreed on was National Economic Reconstruction Fund, National Economic Reconstruction Fund, Family Economic Advancement Program, Family Support Program, Directorate of
Okay.
Food, Road,
Okay,
Rural.
can you do one thing, please? Can you do one thing? I'm not sure I have
Yeah.
this note. Can you scan the note and send to me on WhatsApp, please?
Okay.
This notes on this topic, I'm not sure I have it. So we've discussed the
You don't
means
give
of
us those,
finance.
just wrote all those things for us that
I
we should
think
go and
Solomon
read.
sent something on the
Go and read
group.
it.
It's on our WhatsApp group, Abi. On which group?
Yes. Solomon has dropped something on it for us.
Okay, let me read
Yeah.
it.
So that is it. Out of those 12 that he gave us that day, we selected 7 that we are going to do. Then there is 4 that is going to give us, that we are going to write on that day.
Okay.
Yeah,
Faith.
Solomon
Thanks.
captured it
Faith,
very well. Thanks, Solomon captured
I got your message, Faith. Okay, I got it. Thanks, guys. So watch out. We will discuss all this thing. Solomon, I got your message. Thanks, guys. Well done. So should discuss all this thing in details on Tuesday. All right, let's move on so that we can end today's discussion. So we are discussing on type of resources. We have human resources, your workforce, natural resources. Are you the type that waste water? How you are able to manage land, water, energy? Those are the national resources. Energy means not NEPA. Energy means like your solar, sun. Sunlight and rainfall, they are natural resources, correct? Not artificial resources. We have financial resources. How are you able to source for fund and manage funding, physical resources, technological resources? So these are basically the type of resources, and there are some principles for effective resource management, they are there, planning, allocation. So let me just keep all this. You can read up. I'll share all the materials again now. So what are the importance of resources? It increase productivity, reduce wastages, cost savings, efficiency, and risk. And we have the challenges also in resource allocation. Scarcity is there, technological barriers and everything. So number one component of farm management is resource. Number two is planning. Let's discuss planning. So what is the planning? Planning is basically process of setting goals and also outlining steps to achieve those goals within a time frame. So when you are planning, you set goals, you give direction, and you also set time frame. If you plan without a time frame, that's the no plan. So every planning must have a target or a time frame when those planning must be executed, right? So we have strategic planning, which is long-term planning, setting up long-term loan, tactical planning, basically medium-term goal, operational or day-to-day planning, financial planning like your budget, contingency planning should in case anything happen, maybe X may come eat all your cassava. Resource planning. These are the steps in planning. I think planning. Is this what Dr. Abu said he would test, right? Planning. Is it planning that he said he would test? Anyone, please? I think Dr. Abu said something on planning, right?
Yes,
Yes.
planning.
Okay, so let me take my time to explain. Don't let me rush that. Don't let me rush. Let me calm down. So planning, like I said, planning is the process of setting goal and outlining steps to achieve them. So you can plan through, you set a KPI. When you set KPI, it's part of a planning. All right, KPI, we have the goal, it will have the ranking, and it will also have a time frame when those objectives needs to be achieved, right? So the following are the types of planning. The first one is strategic planning. Strategic planning is more of a long-term planning, right? Any planning that is for the future, that's strategic. Where do you want to be in 10, 20 years time? That's strategic. Tacticals main is like a mid-term objective. Tacticals are short, they are mid-terms goal, right? E.g., where do you want to be in 5 years time? That's tactical. Operational planning, these are like your day-to-day planning, okay? Processes that you follow on day-to-day basis, that is operational. Then financial planning, this one involves your budgeting, which is management of your inflows and outflows. Then we have contingency planning. So this involves planning for unforeseen circumstances. How do you manage that? Then resource planning also is there, allocation of your resources. So these are the various steps involved in planning. First one is the identify objectives. Before you can plan, the first thing is what is my objectives? Okay, I want to produce 100 tons of cassava every day. That is your objectives. That's the first step. Identify what objective. Then the next step is now you assess the current situations. Okay, what do you have on hand? What is your raw material? Who are your labors? So once you have, okay, what is the current situation? Then you now check what are the various options that I can use to achieve this. Those are your alternative. Or your alternative, e.g., irrigation. Do you need to do trenches so that X-Men cow don't encroach into your farm? That's trenches. You check out the alternative you have. Then once you have done the alternative, then you check what are the options, evaluate your options, right? So you can now use your either pestels or SWOT to analyze those alternatives. Then once you do that, you should be able to arrive at the decision. Then you now develop a plan. So develop a plan means you are selecting the best options. That is when you are developing a plan. When you are selecting the best options, then whatever you have developed, you will now implement and monitor. So those are the 7 steps involved in planning. Let me do a summary again. Identify the objective, assess the current situation, analyze the alternatives, evaluate the options, develop a plan, implement and monitor. So what are the benefits of proper planning? Goal alignment. So if you plan it, you'll be able to work towards your goal. If you fail to plan, you are planning to fail. That's the popular adage we were taught when we were young, that you should be able to plan so that you can succeed. It helps you to increase your productivity. It helps you to optimize your resources and managing risk. So what are the challenges involved in planning? Number one is inadequate resources. Everybody has good things that we want to achieve in life, but do we have money to achieve them? E.g., I want to start driving cyber truck. I want to start driving Rolls Royce. Rolls Royce. I want to start driving cyber truck, all those big car, but do I have the money? Money no day. That's limited resources. A message has dropped. Let me read this. Dr. Iwale, he talked about sources of fund, but area of concentration were, so we should read about agri development. Thanks. So I will just copy this. Okay, thank you. So, inadequate resistance to change. Sometimes people do not want to accept change. They want to continue doing things in the old ways. That's another challenge to planning. Uncertainties is there too. You can plan that you want to harvest so metric tons. Suddenly rain did not fall. So rain not falling alone can derail all your planning, right? Then over plan is too. If you plan too much too, you might have challenge also in executing them because you have too many goals you have set. So you won't be able to focus on any of the goals. Okay. So let's discuss financial management. So financial management basically is a strategic planning. It involves financial activities alone, right? So objectives are either you want to maximize your profit, you want to manage your risk, you want to manage your liquidity and cost. When we talk about liquidity basically is talking about access to funding, okay? That is at all time, you should be able to manage your funding at all time. So that is what liquidity management is all about. You should be able to manage your funding. You should not owe people. So functions of financial management, it helps you to align your investment decision with the planning, finance decision, dividend decision, cash flow, and planning. So these are basically the functions of, if you do a proper financial management, then these are the expected functions. So what are the challenges to a good financial management? Access to funding is there. Regulatory compliance sometimes makes things difficult for you, and you have economic uncertainty. You might be thinking that, oh, you are planned very well, but suddenly exchange rate will just come and scatter everything for you. Okay, Dr. Ogege too, on that, don't worry, I know Dr. Ogege, on that break-even graph, let me discuss that with us on Monday. That break-even graph he gave us, don't worry. So should in case you have more of this, please just send it to me on WhatsApp so I can plan for Monday and Monday very well. Monday is on 815 and all those Dr. Gege's break-even. No, break-even is under 838, right? I know that graph he gave us that we shall analyze. Very simple. We will discuss that on Tuesday. It's also an assignment for us, which we are submitting next week. So that's okay. Don't worry. Oh, the more I have, and if there is any that I don't have, surely please raise it. We'll discuss everything next week. So we have, so under the financial management, we've discussed three things. Number one is the resource management, how you manage your resources. Number two is your planning, how you do your planning. And number three is your financial management. Then number four is your production management. So this production to me is one of the most difficult. How you are able to organize your productions, how you are able to manage your, or it could be harvesting, it could be planting. You know, we have production during productions and after production. Production is when you are planting your seed. That is even the easiest, but the most difficult job is during production. I mean, what happened in between, like continuous application of fertilizer, weeding, excess grass. Those are the most important because if you don't manage those things very well, you can plant 10 acres of land and you will not be able to harvest up to 1 acre if you don't manage. So that's what happened during is the main thing. For example, I have a very good knowledge of cassava. When we plant cassava, it will take about 12 to 16 months for us to harvest it. So planting it is not difficult, but what happened within those 12 months is the challenge. Because based on our budget, we should harvest 25 metric tons of cassava per hectare. So if you follow the proper agronomics concept, we should be able to harvest that. But if we don't follow it, we will not harvest that. So everybody must ensure you wet it as at when due, you apply fertilizer, you weed excess, you do all those things. So if you follow normal agronomics there, your production management should not be an issue. So what are the objectives for production management? Timely delivery, efficiency, resource utilization, cost control, and flexibility. So function of production management, so you can just read up on this. Now, the challenge is demand fluctuations is there, technological changes, and pandemics. Have you ever wondered how come that we used to have plantain throughout the year? It is because some people are planning for it, right? There are some time during the year, I think during rainy season, plantain is always very cheap, Abi. It used to be plenty in the market. But sometimes plantain will be scarce. Those ones that we are buying scarce, those are the ones that they were able to harvest during rainy season, but they preserve them during the time the home season of plantain. That is why plantain is relatively available for 12 months. It's not that they harvest every day. No, they will store it and all those things. So pandemic too is a very big problem. I had a situation where I learned something that maybe sometimes. Are you aware? Can you remember there was times that we have a scarcity of tomato in Nigeria, that ladies started innovating new way of cooking without tomato. What happened during that time was that I think something attacked, is it pest or animals or something, or a disease or a virus attacked one of the largest tomato producing company in Nigeria, and it's damaged all their tomato. That was what happened during that time, that, we started seeing different food that people will cook without tomato. All right, so so pandemic can have a lot of impact on your production management. So you said?
I
You
think
remember,
people use
Abi?
cucumber for tomato, watermelon for tomato. Oh, it wasn't funny that time.
You remember that time, Abi?
Of course, I do.
It was, people are very innovative, right? Then if you
White
see
pepper.
somebody, if you see somebody cooking with tin tomato, like that person is odogu. If you see someone cooking with two tomato, the person is serious odogu.
Yes, oh, yes, oh.
Okay. All right. So let's move on. Let's move on, please. So risk management, number 5 is risk management. So here is how you're able to manage risk. I don't think it's going to talk more on risk management. Let's move on to marketing and sales. Marketing and sales is how you're able to distribute and sell your products. If you don't know how to market, that is why some people farms produce, everything will destroy in their farm because they lack the skills to manage this risk. So if you produce and you don't know how to transport it, transportation is one of the biggest problems that they face here. Those that are into farming. Transportation is very big because most of our products come from the north to south. If they're unable to transport, and sometimes too, there can be sabotage, whereby northern people will say they are not bringing goods to Lagos. I remember there was a time that onions too was very scarce because they don't want to bring it to Lagos. I think it was during Buhari's time. Do you remember that time where onions was very scarce? If you see somebody cooking with onions, the person is a big boy. So what I did that time was that, coincidentally, that time it falls during the time that I went on an official assignment to Kano. The only thing, I just went to shop for in the market, I bought like 2 baskets of onions. I had to pay excess luggage, flew it from Kano to Lagos. That was how we were able to sustain it during that time. Onions, because they refuse to transport it. In fact, whenever they see any truck loading onion from north, they will stop it on the road and damage it. It was something, I think, I don't know what was going on that time in Nigeria, where they stop onions truck from loading. Okay, so that's for that. Then the next one is the technological management, how you're able to manage your technology. I don't think Dr. Abu is going to focus on this. He told us on planning alone. Then the last one is labor management and sustainability practice, the record keeping. So these are the 10 components of those 10 things that you need to know about farm management. All right. So I'm going to drop all these materials that I have used this evening. I will drop everything on the platform for us to have a look. And I want to encourage us to please